And he has just, I think, opened up the world of children's books to a whole generation of minority writers and illustrators. Still not enough, but this man forged a trail. There is absolutely no one else that I think is more deserving of this award than Mr. Julius Lester.
Well, thank you. Since I will miss my funeral, I thank you for all those words. It's an honor to receive this award. I really admire you, David, for your passion and commitment to children and to literacy and all that. And so that the award is in the name of your organization means a lot to me. It's very special to receive the award on the occasion of Jerry's exhibit here. Editors, publishers don't like illustrators and authors to get together, and maybe illustrators don't like it either. I'm sure that they've had bad experiences of authors trying to tell them what to do. Jerry's the only author, only illustrator with whom I have a relationship. Most illustrators I never meet. And our relationship began when our editor called me one day and said that Jerry wanted to do a book about John Henry. And I knew the story of John Henry, but you know, it didn't really grab me in any way. So I said to her, I want to talk to Jerry. And so I called Jerry, and Jerry began to talk about his father and how John Henry, his father made him think of John Henry. And so as a writer, a lot of writing involves solving problems. And so the problem I had was the book ends with John Henry dying. And so how do you write a book for children where death is at the end? And so while talking to Jerry, for some reason, he's talking about his father, and I thought of Martin Luther King Jr., and then I thought of King's funeral, and then I thought of Robert Kennedy's funeral and the train that went. And then I remembered a minister friend of mine who preached a funeral and asked the audience, the congregation, to stand and applaud the deceased because of the life she led. And so that gave me the ending, and I said I would do the book. Working with Jerry involves the phone ringing. And on the end of the phone is Jerry. Jerry says, Julius, I need space on page 8. What the hell does that mean? I need space on page 8. I respected Jerry. I had no idea what he meant. But I said, okay. I looked at page 8. There's nothing I want to cut on page 8. So I decided I would go back to page 1, and I would cut from page 1 to page 7, and Jerry would have his space on page 8. And so a lot of working with Jerry is basically doing what Jerry wants you to do. Which is, it's well worth it. It's well worth it. The other story among many that I have about Jerry is, I think it was on Black Cowboy, Wild Horses, that Jerry called up. He read the manuscript. We both had a real love for black cowboys. And he said, I don't have anything to illustrate. I said, what do you mean have anything to illustrate? There are the horses, there are the cowboys, there are the land. What do you mean there's nothing to illustrate? But Jerry said he didn't have anything to illustrate. So I went back to the manuscript, and I realized that I needed more concreteness in the manuscript. And so I rewrote it, and Jerry did some wonderful illustrations of it. Then the last book we did together was The Old African. And I know Jerry worked from models. And one of the things that working with Jerry has done for me is that it's made me, I write my best when I know that Jerry is going to be illustrating it. And I know that Jerry works from models. And so I wanted to write something that he couldn't work from models on. And so the old African, I did. And Jerry called up and he said, the language is so vivid. I don't have anything to illustrate. And I said to myself, I got you. He, of course, found a lot to illustrate, some of which you can see if you have not seen. We've had a wonderful working relationship because we respect each other. We like what each other does. And we also have a sensibility about what we want a book to be, what we are writing and illustrating about, which is communicating the spirit of a people through some of the stories of our people. And so that the way we work together, you look closely at Jerry's illustrations, you will see that Jerry has ways of extending the story by things that are implied in the words, but he makes them explicit. I mean, for example, in Sam and the Tigers, it's set in, there's a little retelling a little like Sambo. And I set it in a land called Sam Samaro, where everything's alive. When I saw the illustrations, I noticed that Jerry had put faces in the trees, in the leaves, and in other places in the story. So that's implied in my words, but Jerry made it explicit. You look at the old African. The old African does not begin, the story does not begin with the text. The story begins with an illustration of a runaway slave. And so Jerry has a way of at least with my work, of going into the silences, shall we say, and illustrating what's in there. And so I really urge you, if not seen the illustrations as well as the new work he is doing, which is just really extraordinary. We really love what you're doing. So it's very special for me to be here with Jerry's work, and I thank you for this award.